In this presentation, we're going to look at the process of creating 2D orthographic views. Having made your parts and assemblies, you'll find that Inventor has all the information it requires to produce even the most complex 2D drawings. For the purposes of this demonstration, we're going to take this wheel and go through the process of creating orthographic views to produce a range of different drawing types. Let's start that process now. The first step in the operation is to click on the application button in the top left hand corner and select new. From the new file dialog box, we're going to hunt until we find a file with the extension .dwg, just like these ones here and here and here. These are 2D orthographic drawing file types, and the extension .dwg is pretty much industry standard. Of the 5 orthographic files that we see here, the ISO.dwg file is the one we're going to look at, so I'm going to double click on it, and that brings up an empty orthographic drawing. By default, a border and title block are placed. You could choose to customize these if you don't like the defaults. Essentially, the process of creating your orthographic drawings is this. We're going to first of all bring in a base drawing, which is going to represent the elevation of our wheel, and then we'll project end elevations and plans from that view. We'll then go on to see how other views, such as sectional views, are created. So we'll start the process by clicking on base, and up comes the drawing view dialog box, and I can see a representation of the wheel just here. And the first thing I'm offered is the chance to take a decision as to which way round this base view is going to sit. By default it sits facing front, which is this side of the wheel, or I can go for one of the many other options from top, bottom, left, right, etc. I'm just going to hover down here and use the cursor keys to run through all of the options until I get the orientation that has the wheel sitting round the way I want it. I'm going to go for that as my base view, and I can click anywhere on the page to place that base view now. When I try to place it, I get a dialog box reminding me that I haven't yet saved this file, and that has to be done before placing the first view, so I'll say OK to that, and I'll save that, like so. That's placed my base view in position. The next thing I'm looking for is a couple of projected views from that base view. I'm going to project a plan, and I'll project an end elevation, and I'll project an isometric view as well. So I'll select projected, and I'll click once on the base view, and the software knows that the projected view has to come off this view, and I'll left click to position the plan. I'll pull into the correct position for the end elevation and left click again, and I'll pull along and up into the position for the isometric view and left click again. And when I've finished placing projected views, I'll right click and say create, and the software automatically generates the projected views. If I try to reposition these views, I can hover near this end elevation until a small border of red dots appears, and I can click and hold that view and pull it in position, and you can see that I've still got some movement, although it is locked in alignment to the base view, and the same goes for the plan. I can click and hold and drag that into a new position, although its alignment is locked too. The isometric view, on the other hand, is much more free. I can change some properties of the views by hovering over them and double clicking, and up comes the drawing view dialog box. I could change the scale of this view from full size just now using the drop down menu to make it smaller or larger. I'm going to keep the full size scale for now. I could switch on the label by clicking the toggle label visibility button just here, and I'm going to give this view a name. We'll call it elevation, and we can click on the edit view label button, and I'm going to remove the scale from the label and just leave the name. Say OK to that, and when I say OK, the name appears. I'm just going to click and hold and drag that into a better position just here, and I can repeat that for the other 3 views. It could well be that you want to show the hidden detail in some of your views. If that's the case, in this elevation, I'm going to go to the view and double click on the border of the view, and from the drawing view dialog box, I'm going to change this setting from hidden line removed to hidden line. And when I say OK, nothing much changes in this view other than some minor detail, but I can see lots more hidden detail shown in the end elevation and in the plan. The reason for that, if I double click on the end elevation, is that this box has been checked to say style from base. So whichever style is chosen for the base view, the projected views follow on. I could uncheck that and go for a different style for that particular view. And you'll see that in that particular view I don't have any hidden detail. One thing you may have spotted is that the ISO file is set up to display in first angle projection. If you prefer that your views were shown in third angle projection, that would require to be set up before we actually projected some views. So I'm going to remove these projected views here. And go into the Manage tab and Styles Editor. And in the View Preferences tab of the Styles Editor, I'm going to select third angle projection. The default is first, we'll go for third. If I say done, and yes to save the edits, I'll find that if I go back to Place Views and Projected, when I place my plan, end elevation and isometric view, and then right click and create, they're produced in third angle projection. One really useful feature of producing orthographics using CAD software is that there's a direct relationship between the orthographics that we're producing and the model itself. If we were to go back to the model and make some modification to the part, I'm simply going to remove a large segment from the model just for demonstration purposes. I'll take a large chunk out here. Done, and finish that sketch. And we'll extrude this, cut both ways to remove all, and OK that. Then we'll find if we go back to the orthographic and say OK to that dialog box, then all of the drawings automatically update themselves to reflect that change. I'm just going to go back to the original part and undo that. And then back again. If we go back to the Place Views tab, we'll find that there's a specific tool for creating sectional views. I'm going to click on it and talk you through the process of using the sectional view tool. I'd like a sectional view here based on a cutting plane line running vertically through the middle of the elevation here. So having selected the sectional view tool here, the next thing to select is the actual view itself where you want the cutting plane to be. So I'm going to click once on the view, and then with my next left click I'm going to start the drawing of the cutting plane line. I'm going to click once with the left mouse button and then pull down vertically and click a second time, and then now that I've finished drawing the cutting plane line, I'm going to right click and say continue, and then pull the view into the correct position. I'm going to place it just here. One reason that I was careful to draw the cutting plane line off the centre was to make sure that the cutting plane line didn't get locked onto that midpoint, just so that I could demonstrate to you that I can now click and hold and drag that cutting plane line into any new location and the sectional view will regenerate itself, like so. Because, as we said earlier, there's a direct relationship between the orthographic views and the model itself, it shouldn't be any surprise to find out that you can pick up the dimensional information from the model and place it straight into the drawing. To do that, hover over any of the views and right click and say Retrieve Dimensions. From the Retrieve Dimensions dialog box with Select Part selected, I'm going to click on this view here and I'll get offered all of the dimensions that are available, and with the Select Dimensions option I'm going to just pick the few dimensions that I want to keep, like so, and then I'll say apply and cancel, and all the other dimensions disappear, leaving just the ones I selected. Something that throws up is the fact that I have a comma instead of a decimal point. That and anything else that you don't like about the dimensions can be modified by again going into the Manage tab and Styles Editor. I notice a general setting here that has the decimal marker as a comma, so I'll go to the drop down menu and change that to a period. But that's general settings applying to the drawing generally. What I really want to do is go into the dimensions and expand with the plus sign beside it, and select default ISO and say yes to that, and make the changes here that apply specifically to the dimensions. So again, decimal marker to be a period, linear units in millimeters, precision level rather than 2 decimal places, no decimal place, and there are a high number of other tabs where you can change features such as how the dimensions are going to display, etc. Once you've made all your changes, save and done, and you'll see that those couple of changes already have taken effect. So with a high number of options available to you here, I'm sure you'll agree it could take some time to get your head around everything that's there, but certainly there's no quicker and more accurate way to produce orthographic drawings.